Handing out money, anything, ayy. Ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the back, ayy. Got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast, ayy. Let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I am rolling solo today. Yeah, we're going to jump into it. We got a lot to talk about here today. There's some pretty big news that came out. Obviously, you guys are all aware of. We're going to get into all of that fun stuff. But I do like to give out a little weekly reminder. If you want to get in on the Freight Coach newsletter, drops once a week, only on Wednesdays, not blowing up your inbox, not trying to convince you guys I have the solutions to life. It's all freight related, all right? So if you want to get in on that, I need you to go to thefreightcoach.com, and it will auto prompt you to register for it. And I do that because I hate when people auto sign me up for stuff. So if you want it, I want you to want to receive it once a week, every single Wednesday. I think it drops at 7 a.m. Pacific time. And if you don't worry. We don't auto sign you up for it, so you don't have to see it. But we got some articles to break down today. And again, all the links to all the articles that we break down on this show will be uploaded into the show notes for you guys to research on your own, because that's what I want you guys to do, is formulate your own opinions. But we're going to dive right in, you guys. We got the This Week in Freight, powered by my friends over at DAT. You guys, everything is 100% viewer submitted, all right? All of this segment is designed to do is to help each and every one of you with how I personally read freight markets, how I've read them over the entirety of my career, and how we can take this information and find those stability markers out there. So this one, you guys, it is a dry van, and it is St. Louis, Missouri, going to Charlotte, North Carolina for a dry van. Now, with everything that I look at, first and foremost, I always pay attention to the miles, right? Because that vastly affects the days of the week, especially if you are the days of the week, like the rate for the days of the week that it's going to ship. Unless you're a contracted shipper out there, you got to essentially wear it when it's those weekend runs on 700 miles. A lot of people love miles on that. So that affects the pricing that comes along with it. But, again, if this is a great Monday through, I mean, depending on the driver's clock, some individuals can make it overnight on this one. But again, I like to follow the 500 mile as a general rule of thumb for days of transit approach. But, so that one is, essentially picks on a Monday, delivers on a Wednesday, just based on that. But, again, depending on hours of service, shippers and receivers hours, some people can get this in their next day out there. But this lane's dropping, right? Again, I want people to pay attention to this. We see a lot of stuff coming out about tender rejections, fuel being up, national average, everything being up. But there are specific lanes out there, I mean, primarily on the ones that I've been breaking down over this last couple of weeks, where they're trending down, actually. And, again, I know a lot of people don't think fuel has a big effect on a lot of these things, but I think anytime that there's a change out there, it's going to cause a tightness in capacity and an increase in rates. I view a lot, the further and further down in the increased fuel prices that we've seen, as it's extending out now into like the 5th or 6th week that this has happened, that this has been up. I think a lot of it is it's almost like I would compare it to like an extended weather event, right? You know how there's limited capacity going in and out of certain weather, and that can drive up rates temporarily. I'm not saying that this is a temporary thing, but I think when we're looking at it on a lane by lane basis, there's more lanes that have leveled off and are starting to decline in rates out there. So I think what we saw, and again, this is just pure speculation, you guys, I could be wrong here, but I've been doing this for a very long time. Normally what happens is when there's any change in fuel prices, or other events, there's a tightness in capacity. Drivers wait and adjust. And then from what, I've personally heard from a lot of our carriers is at first they severely limited what they were going to do because they wanted to see if rates were going to catch up. And now that they see that rates have caught up out there, people are more willing to kind of expand their service region again. A couple of our core carriers that we personally work with on a weekly basis, they all kind of said like, hey, once fuel shot up, we wanted to stay within like 700 miles of our home base. We normally go 1,500 to 2,000 because we wanted to see if rates were going to really catch up across the board. And we just didn't want to be stuck somewhere. And now that they see that rates have, caught up and stabilized, they're more willing to go outside of that service area. Now, does this mean every carrier operates this way? No. Does this mean every lane performs this way? No. But like those are those markers that we really need to be paying attention to. And if we're looking at this here, last month it was at this lane was moving at $2,300. And now it's down to 21, right? So again, it's stabilized from my perspective. I like to follow that kind of like that $200 variance thing, whether it's 200 above or 200 below. That's the stabilization point that I personally pay attention to. And I look at this lane in particular, and this is one of those lanes that if I was moving this and I was quoting this out there with my customer, yes, I would still be talking to them, keeping them in the loop on, a lot of things capacity related. International Road Check is coming up next month. Also, there is the U.S. Postal Service with the non-domiciled ruling. That's going to change capacity as well out there. So again, like there's some markers, and again, like this could shift back up there. But I look at it is now if I'm looking back over the last 60 days, this lane has trended down. I think that this lane has stabilized out there. So I would feel confident over the next 30 days to probably quote the exact same moving forward based on this data. Now, I'm never going to tell you guys what to quote because I don't know what your customers are paying you, and I don't want to cost you guys any money out there. But if you're in that spot market situation, you might have to get a little bit more aggressive on your pricing to win that volume, because when lanes tend to drop back down from the spot market, if it locks in with contract, people are going to start accepting that freight at that contract rate, especially when they know that they're going to start making money on it. So this one in particular, St. Louis going out to Charlotte, again, rest assured it's a power lane. There's a lot of carriers who are going to run that. But most importantly, it looks like this lane has stabilized. You see the spike out there in when fuel hit up. So again, it looks like it's stabilized and it'll probably sit around here. So I would feel comfortable proceeding with that current market rate if you're in a spot market situation. And if you're contracted on this lane, you're probably going to start seeing a little bit more profit baked in to these loads again, or, assuming that you continue to take them throughout this time and you weren't rejecting them, which, we can't always reject it when it's not fair and we got to lose a little bit of money. You got to service the account, ladies and gentlemen. But that is St. Louis, Missouri to Charlotte, North Carolina dry van lane analysis. And that is powered by my friends at DAT for This Week in Freight. And again, if you want your lane broken down on the show, you guys, I need you to email my team, podcast@thefreightcoach.com, and we will break it down for you. I just need pickup city, delivery city, trailer type, and that's it. I don't need anything else. And yeah, that's what we do 3 times a week, just to help you guys understand how a freight market kind of actually works. And at least how I assess new areas and regions and stuff when I'm going out there and bidding, because your boy actually cold calls. Shocking. But let's get into some articles here. There's some pretty big news that dropped out there, and it has everything to do with tariffs. We're going to talk about that, and then especially if you want to get your money back, because that was recently done here. So this article, you guys, is from ttnews.com. Businesses can now claim refunds for tariffs. This article, it's ttnews.com, transport topics. It reports, it highlights a growing movement where U.S. businesses are successfully filing for and receiving millions in refunds on Section 301 tariffs. As trade litigation matures, many importers are finding that their goods were either misclassified or should have been exempt under specific exclusions that were previously overlooked. It's the first step in a complicated process that also might eventually lead to refunds for consumers who were billed for some or all of the tariffs on products shipped to them from outside of the United States. Companies must submit declarations listing the goods on which they collectively put billions of dollars towards the import taxes the court subsequently struck down. If the CBP approves the claim, it will take 60 to 90 days for a refund to be issued. The government expects the process to refunds in phases, however, focusing first on most recent tariff payments. Any number of technical factors and procedural issues could delay an importer's application. We all know what happened out there in the Supreme Court. And although the court the majority did not address refund in its ruling, a judge at the U.S. Court of International Trade determined last month that companies subjected to IEEPA tariffs were entitled to money back. It is important to note out there that not all imports are immediately eligible. Customs and Border Protection said in a court filing over 330,000 importers paid a total of $166 billion on over 53 million shipments. Not all of those orders qualify for the first phase of the refund, which is limited to cases, in which tariffs were estimated but not finalized or within 80 days of final accounting. Let's go here. I think like anybody, I've had a couple of these companies on the show in the past, you guys. Any of these companies that make money off of this, like this is going to be another business thing. And I would err, like, again, be cautious on who you hire to assist you in this right now. Like I wouldn't go off of an email from somebody that you've never worked with. I would want to personally work with my attorney internally here on if I was to go about this. And I'm sure most people are, but I think not everybody will. And then there's going to be somebody who's going to, take advantage of people. So again, be very cautious, you guys, on where you're filing this stuff, who you're filing it with. I would just hate to see people get taken advantage of. And anytime this stuff happens, like I'm a pessimist. I think somebody's going to try and take advantage of people. But, what they were saying in there about like consumers getting, we're not going to see any of that money. I would be shocked if some of these companies that were paid tariffs were going to somehow offer a deal to the customers who purchased products back in that time. Again, I could be wrong. I just don't see it happening. And then it does say like the classification trap, a single digit wrong on your HTS code could be costing you unnecessary dues. Again, go through your customs entries that are out there, because again, if you classified this wrong and maybe you didn't pay tariffs on something that you should have, that might come to light during this time as well. I think that it would be interesting to see though, because again, like these refunds that are going to come about, you guys, like there's going to be, you just don't know. I don't know how I would handle this, right? Like if I was in that situation, again, I'm not importing any goods, but considering there's still a lot of potential litigation that could come down from this, it's going to be interesting to see, like, does this get overturned? If that gets overturned, right? Where it's like, hey, actually, you're not eligible for refunds. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. Don't take anything I say as legal advice by all means, but it would be interesting to see if this gets overturned at all, because there's the Trump administration is still fighting this. And they're going to continue to fight this for probably the foreseeable future. And I've stated my opinion on tariffs, right? It's going to be interesting to see if this gets overturned and if this is fought. And then if you are issued any refunds, are you going to have to pay that back? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see here, because there is a lot that has yet to happen. But again, I'm already seeing this on my social media. There's people out there trying to be like, oh, you're entitled to all these billions of dollars. Go in there, submit your claim and everything else. It's probably a trap. They're actually not who they are. You're going to pay some again, that's why I to everybody, err on the side of caution here. If this is a third-party provider that you have no experience with that is trying to sell you on that they can get you your refund faster, I would not want to do that. I would always go to my personal attorney first on all of this stuff, because I can't like state for a fact, but I don't think that this whole tariff thing is over. And I would hate to see some of these businesses go get a refund for their tariffs that they've paid, just to find out that they got to pay it back. And then if they don't have the capital, like what that could do to a business, right? So that's why I would always say, go talk to your attorneys about this stuff, you guys, before you go and file any claims. I'm not saying don't file claims, but like check the fine print on all of this stuff, because if this is open to be rescinded at all, I would hate to see businesses pay that, spend that money that they thought was a refund, and then it turns out that it gets overturned, and then they got to pay all that money back. And if they don't have the capital to do it, they got to shut down their business or take out a loan or whatever that looks like. So I know that this is a big thing for a lot of people and a lot of businesses, but I would please read the fine print. But if you thought that tariffs were a bad idea, you can take your moment to celebrate here for the brief minute that it will last in the news cycle. That article was from ttnews.com. Businesses can now claim refunds for Trump tariffs. Now, next article we are going to be breaking down is from FreightWaves, and that is about everybody's favorite story that now everybody's got an opinion on. This is after the CBS report, C.H. Robinson seeks to deflect safety responsibility to the FMCSA. With the Supreme Court case and Delilah Coleman story, brokers find themselves very much in the spotlight. Now, obviously, as a broker, it's, like there's only so much we can do. And when I say this, I mean, we make a lot of the decisions on what carriers we work with based on government data, right? Like there's, and all of the companies out there that are offering carrier vetting services and stuff, you guys, like they're all pulling from the FMCSA data. There's no secret algorithm out there. Not saying that people don't have proprietary information, like stuff that they can do behind the scenes, but everybody's pulling from the FMCSA. Everybody's pulling from the DOT. So in my opinion, as a broker, if I make a decision to hire a carrier to do a load with me, and then something happens in transit, but everything showed clean on the FMCSA, the insurance document was clean, everything was good, and then something happened in transit, at what point does my job end as a freight broker? And I think that this is going to get very much cleared up here in the coming weeks, because there's only so much we can do. And again, like there is a very big difference between continued negligent hiring practices where you shouldn't be working with this carrier. They've done X, Y, and Z, and you're continuing to choose to work with them. But if they're out there and all the data that we show is clean and everything goes behind the scenes, like at what point does our liability end? And I think that this is what is going to get really cleaned up here. I know everybody's got an opinion on everything, but I think fundamentally what C.H. Robinson did at the Supreme Court, the broker community should be very much supporting them on the Supreme Court case, because that could vastly change how you are doing your job as a freight broker. Okay. I'm only sitting here from the standpoint that like I see social media posts out there, and I know everybody loves to pile on certain companies that are in the headlines that are out there. And I'm not justifying anybody's actions. I'm not defending or blaming or anything like that. I'm just saying there's a lot of people who like to openly shit on companies, but then if it wasn't for those companies fighting the legal battles in Washington, D.C. and other avenues in the courts, we might not have a business, right? So again, I know everything is very circumstantial that is out there, but I think overall, and again, like I'll just come out and say it, fake news is all over the place, you guys. CBS, who did this, and again, let's get into the article. I'm sorry, I just wanted to put that out there. Like as a broker, my opinion is if we're using data from the FMCSA and they say that carrier is good to use, and I use them and something happens in transit, how is that negligent hiring of a carrier? But if I'm a broker and the FMCSA says, probably shouldn't use this guy, but they're the cheapest one. I know something shady is going on, and I'm going to continue to use them. Two entirely different scenarios. So getting into this article here, you guys, following the CBS News report, C.H. Robinson is publicly pushing back against the narratives that brokers should act as the safety police. Robinson's stance is that the FMCSA is the only entity with legal authority to determine if a carrier is fit to operate. If a carrier has active authority, a broker shouldn't be liable for the carrier's road performance. I would agree with that. Like, there's a very well publicized thing. Like, as a broker, if you tell a driver something and something happens in transit, that's how you get pulled in. Like, that's how I was trained to do the job back in the day, is you cannot give directions. You cannot tell a driver what they can and cannot do, because that changes the entire transaction that is out there. It goes on, it talks about chameleon carriers. And I know chameleon carriers are all over the news. It does say that, I'm sorry, I was reading ahead here, you guys. I have ADHD, but undiagnosed. But C.H. Robinson was singled out by CBS as a 3PL that had hired trucking companies who could be considered chameleon carriers with spotty records. CBS's reporting is suddenly forcing the brokerage industry and C.H. Robinson into a position of public focus as it awaits the Supreme Court deliberations in the Montgomery versus Caribe Transport 2, which, regardless of which way it goes, is seen as establishing an enormous legal precedent over the issues of broker liability in accidents that leave a person or persons dead or injured. In its response to this CBS report, C.H. Robinson came back to a defense that was part of the arguments made at the Supreme Court. It is ultimately the federal government, through the FMCSA, that establishes the fitness of carriers, and brokers rely on those judgments. Wholeheartedly agree. C.H. Robinson has been an initial defendant in that case, having hired Caribe Transport 2, whose truck struck another driver, Sean Montgomery, in December of 2017 in Illinois. But the Seventh Circuit's interpretation of broker liability precedents excised from the proceedings on the appeal. The case was clear. Sorry, I've already talked about a lot of this on there. And then CBS also cited President Trump's mention in the State of the Union address of the Delilah Coleman case that was out there. An Indian immigrant, Partap Singh, was driving the truck that struck Coleman. The Department of Homeland Security said he was in the country illegally, but held a CDL from California. C.H. Robinson is a defendant in the California Supreme Court action filed by Coleman's parents. The heart of the case against brokers in general in the CBS reporting was summed up in a quote by Marcus Coleman, the father of Delilah Coleman. Trust me, I'm upset with the driver. I'm upset with the carrier. But if we go after the broker, if we don't go after the broker, this is going to continue this is going to continue happening. Excuse me. CBS also said its reporting had revealed C.H. Robinson had hired thousands of trucking companies that had a history of safety issue. Dozens had hallmarks of chameleon carriers, operators that paper over pro safety records. Okay, so I want to talk about like that statement alone. I didn't watch the entirety of the specific segment that's out there, but how can they prove that? Like, that's a very serious allegation to say C.H. Robinson or any broker is negligently hiring thousands of carriers that had history of safety issues. I also think, though, that, like, again, that is superseded by their initial point that if the FMCSA states that these carriers are safe to hire, did they do anything wrong? And again, there's a big difference if there is a track record and a paper trail showing that there was negligent hiring. But if we're going off of that data, and so obviously, I don't want to see any road tragedies out there at all. I truly don't. I wish the reality was everybody lived and bad things didn't happen out there. But, I look at it where, how is it the broker's fault if the driver was driving negligently? Unless it can be proven that the broker told the driver to do something that caused them to drive negligently, right? Like, I think that that's a completely different scenario here, but like there's some very bold statements that are made in this article and that came from this report. And, again, I don't know, like it's not entire, like I think that they're putting the blame on the the complete blame on CH Robinson here for like the entire, and then they're trying to lump every single broker into it. And this is like what really, really pisses me off, probably more than anything. Like I'm not, none of us internally work at CH Robinson and can validate any of the statements made in this article or on the CBS News report, right? There's some very, very bold claims. I would assume, I don't know, I'm not privy to anything. I would assume CH Robinson's legal team is probably drafting up some pretty fucking serious things right now to go after this stuff, because it very much paints them in a very negative light. Again, I'm not there internally. I don't know everything that goes on at CH Robinson, but I do know that their statement that we are going off of FMCSA data, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Association data, to make our decisions if a carrier, trucking company, whatever you want to call them, is roadworthy based on the FMCSA's data and metrics. If we are hiring that carrier and the data is clean with the FMCSA and something happens in transit, how is that the broker's fault? Now, again, that is vastly different than a broker hiring a carrier where there is a very well documented negligence in their operation out there, i.e. fucking ridiculously high safety scores, everything else, multiple out of service, vastly different. Okay. And I truly think that, from my perspective, this is why us as an industry, like, we need to really like step up. And I know that there's gonna be a ton of brokers out there. I've already seen it. Who are gonna shit all over CH Robinson. These are going to be the exact same brokers who are going to be singing their praise, though, when they win this Supreme Court case that is out there. Because, again, there is only so much I can do as a broker. All right. I cannot control weather. I cannot control traffic. I cannot control if a driver is having a bad day and makes a mistake behind the wheel. All I can control is the metrics that I am using that decides, is a carrier legally like good in the eyes of the FMCSA. Now, if they are, and I book them and something happens, I would love to hear from a lawyer, what could I have done differently there? Could I subpoena every carrier's driver records? Or do I trust that the FMCSA is actively monitoring all of this stuff and that it should be in the FMCSA's data set that shows like, hey, these guys have a bunch of drivers with drug violations and speeding violations and everything else? Because like that's one of the categories in the FMCSA is unsafe driving, drug and alcohol, driver fitness, all of that stuff. So like, again, if you're going off of those metrics and everything shows clean and something happens in transit, how is it my fault as a broker? I'm truly curious, because like, I don't see how it is my fault as a broker if I'm going off of that data alone. But if I'm going off of that data and there is very severe violations that are made and I still work with the carrier, that is vastly different. Okay. Vastly different. So I think that keeping everybody and lumping everybody together as the brokerage community, it's very poor reporting by CPS. It's CBS, excuse me. It really is. Again, there's very bold statements that are made in there. Very bold statements that are categorically you're not able to prove it unless, again, there are people out there inside of CH Robinson who is feeding all of this that says overlook all of this stuff. Then that will change my opinion at the time. I didn't see it at the time of this show. But from where I'm standing right now, it's a very bold statement that's were made out there. Again, I'm not saying everybody's perfect, but I think before every broker starts throwing stones, you might want to make sure your shit's in line, because if it's not, probably should sit this one out. All right. You probably should sit this one out. I want to put this out here. I got this email this morning. This is a direct statement from the TIA on this, that the story cited approximately 5,000 trucking fatalities in 2024, a number that demands serious attention. We share the concern from every family affected by preventable crashes, but the segment framed freight brokers as the central problem, and that framing is wrong. TIA is actively responding, and I want you to know where we stand and what we are doing on that. And then, it goes on to talk about a bunch more, but the TIA is actively going out there, and they're going to be fighting this because I agree with the TIA on this, that it is framing that, brokers are the central problem isn't accurate at all. And then a lot of these bold claims that are in that segment, again, it's one of those things that this, goes in line with the fact that, and I'm going to end the show at this, Mark, because I got a day job to do, you guys. I can't talk about this all day long. But if we are going off of FMCSA data to make our decisions on who we use to haul our freight, and everything's clean on there, I want you guys to think about that. That's the information that that's our only decision-making data that we have. Again, if it's clean in the eyes of the FMCSA, if the federal governing body approves that carrier's usage on the road, and that's the decision we use, think about that for a second. And they're clean and something happens, like, what could I have done differently? Very, very different than me as a broker seeing that exact same data, seeing serious violations and saying, fuck it, let's book them anyways. Like, we need the money. That's very negligent. That is a very different scenario there. But again, there's a lot of bold claims that are being thrown around out there, you guys. And again, before anybody talks shit, you should probably look at your operations first and make sure your stuff's buttoned up. Because if anything changes with this, you guys, and there's anything, and like we all of a sudden have to release all of our internal data to the FMCSA on how we're hiring people, you better hope your shit's in line at that time. But that is going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank that show on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Ayy, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the back. Ayy, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast. Ayy.